And welcome. We are live. It's another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. It's the 16th day of August, 2015. My name is Doug Owen. I am your host and the senior editor of BlacklistedNews.com. You can find all of the news articles that we talk about on the show, all of the information that you need to be part of it at BlacklistedNews.com. The website dedicated to this show is BlacklistedRadio.com. You can meet the ambassadors, the chatters there. We have an interactive chat room that is live 24/7, though more populated, obviously, during the live shows that we do every Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, live from our stream and at Republic Broadcasting. So good to have you along with us. It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks. Last week, I was completely out of it. I've been traveling. I was a little under the weather. Today, no different. I just drove back from Houston, Texas, right here to Round Rock, where I reside, and what a police state we live in. Unfortunately, it was a pretty expensive trip. I was stopped in Brenham, Texas, and ticketed by a very lovely police officer who was very professional, and I can't say enough about the treatment I received other than a very, very expensive ticket. So, yeah, the sights, the sounds, the scenes from the kind of the Bible Belt of Texas. It's always interesting just to take a look at what's happening around the state and just, out of the purview of all of the people living here in the city. You kind of get isolated when you live in Austin because it's this little blue bubble that's in the middle of, God's country. Texas is alive and well. Saw lots of rebel flags. I was driving through a little town, Elgin, Texas. It's on Highway 290, and there is this piñata for all of you across the world, people in the Hispanic culture, and other cultures, I'm sure, as well. They like to bash these things called piñatas that are filled with candy. I mean, most people know what a piñata is, but some of our European listeners may be culture shocked, but not that it really matters too much. But anyway, the point of this is to bash this paper mache object. Sometimes they're ponies, sometimes they're cartoon characters, different animals. It's kind of barbaric when you really think about it, but we like it. People do it here. It's a thing. And I wanted to take a picture. I was going to tweet it out today, but I totally forgot because my son was in a rush to make a bathroom stop. So that was kind of paramount when we were driving. I'm just appreciative that he didn't make a mess. But anyway, so when we go through, we see this big piñata store that has, I don't know, maybe 1,200 Donald Trump piñatas. And at first I was like, what the hell is this thing? What are those? Oh, wait. It had blonde hair, had a little suit on, and then it became clear to me that it is none other than a Donald Trump piñata. I guess they sell well with the illegal immigrant population there locally and people driving 290. So I thought it was pretty funny that people are so offended. I don't remember a George Bush piñata, although there may have been. I don't remember a Bill Clinton piñata. I haven't seen any Obama piñatas or Joe Biden piñatas that I'm aware of. It would probably be considered racist to bash a black piñata, having it hanging there. I mean, you could probably stir a political nightmare for yourself by having an Obama piñata, but these things are selling like hotcakes. I wanted to buy one, actually, just to have this thing as a keepsake, as a conversation piece when people come to the house and, kind of get a kick out of, the Donald Trump piñata. But I thought it was pretty telling that people are pretty enraged with the phenomena that has become Donald Trump. I don't want to talk about politics and the punditry too much today because you're getting plenty of it if you're watching mainstream media. But I did get a chance this morning to observe some of the talking heads on ABC, looking at the coverage of the big party in Iowa. They go to the fair, and all the politicians get up on their soapbox, and the Republicans get to speak. And I have to tell you, the more and more I listen to Donald Trump speak, the more and more I think that even though he seems to be a pretty offensive person, and I'm not really sure of what his motivations may be, but I have to think that he's the only person that is not bought and paid for, the only person that is uncompromisable in the 2016 election. He's the only person that has no need to bankroll Wall Street, to push for laws that are anti-American, because he doesn't have to. If you look at what America really is and what it embodies, he's kind of that person, somebody that's been able to become an entrepreneur and be very successful, and even use the political system to his advantage to make himself billions of dollars. So when you think about the American dream, I mean, Donald Trump, to most people that are chasing the pie in the sky, I mean, he embodies the American dream. And the more and more I think about it, I mean, Rand Paul, I got issues. I saw Ron Paul came out and officially endorsed his son, and it was pretty lackluster, a very milquetoast endorsement, if you will. He said, well, he's the only person that can get this country back on track in 2016. Maybe that's true. None of the Democrats, I think, in my mind, even the Bernie Sanders revolution itself is all that appealing. Rand Paul's not that appealing. You get to Ben Carson. I mean, the guy said a lot of great stuff about Obama, but he endorses torture openly, and just like Jeb Bush, and he's pro-forced vaccination, not just for children entering school, but adults as well. So Ben Carson scares me in a whole lot of other ways. Smart guy. Think that he has great ideas. The fact that he's a doctor, and he's kind of like a doctor of Jekyll Island, or Island of Dr. Moreau, that bothers me. So I listen to Trump, and he's the only guy that says things that are even somewhat true. He's the only person that's not just catering to political correctness. And for all of those reasons, I mean, I can't say that there's anybody else out there that I think would do a worse job or be any more entertaining than having Donald Trump running the country post-2016. I know it scares the hell out of a lot of people, but I mean, how bad can it be? How much different could it really be to have Donald Trump as opposed to Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden and Al Gore, who are now going to be this power couple running? That's what all the Sunday shows, for all the political pundits out there, or the what they call the Insta pundits that listen to the show. I mean, you can watch the Sunday shows to kind of get a feel of what's happening in the political universe. Not all that compelling to me, and probably not to most of you, but it's always interesting to stop and take a look at the show that is Politics Today. So some of the stories that I have that I do want to highlight. By the way, we do have open phone lines, 800-313-9443. You can also text me, 512-222-3067, anytime. We have the uprisings in Ferguson. And I want to mention those briefly because we have the anniversary of the Ferguson riots, and we have agitators, thug cops, thugs, and a lot of people that are very upset with the status quo, the lack of accountability by police departments across the nation. The number of unarmed teens that are being executed by police is completely unacceptable. The police state itself is completely unacceptable, and people are looking for some venue. I actually saw a great piece by one of the leaders of the Occupy movement. He was one of the co-founders, and he did a dissertation on why political activism through marches and protests are pretty ineffective. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't use your First Amendment, and I'm not saying that protesting and letting the state know that they are out of whack with what the American people want is, not civil disobedience at its finest form. But how effective is yelling at the government? How effective is using violence, even when justified against the government? Has that had a positive impact? It used to have a lot more, I think, maybe just the citizenry, the backlash and the amount of reaction, the amount of people that are appalled by police brutality has completely dwindled. I mean, right now in Brazil, we have over 100,000 people protesting, wanting to ouster, to impeach their president. You have to have these just huge, massive pushes that can only be sustained by a real political, ideological change. So I've seen the reaction, one of which, acoustic cannon sales to police surge after Black Lives Matter protests. Black Lives Matter is another group that I think has the right idea, trying to bring more police accountability and understanding really at the root of what most of the violence stems from is where they get lost. Most people believe it's racism, and that may play a part in how you are treated by the police, but most of it has to do with poverty. Poor people's lives matter. That would be more empowering because it wouldn't isolate any group. When you look at homeless people and how they're treated here in this country and around the world, I mean, people are doing it with more disdain every day. The putting spikes up around buildings so the transients, the homeless, don't sleep near their stairwells. And I can understand. I mean, if you pay a few $100,000 for some condo, maybe more, and you walk outside every day to see homeless people hovering under your doorstep, what do you do? And I'm not the solution man that has all the solutions for all the world's problems. I think that that's the problem in and of itself. When you look to government to give you answers, when you look to the state to solve problems of socioeconomics, inequality, you're not necessarily going to get a great result. And that's just, looking at what I take away from looking at most things that government does. They are pretty ineffective. So when it comes to the people, the more and more they push back, the more and more you see the dehumanization, something that has really become popular in Israel. The Israeli army, actually, the IDF, developed what they call the skunk weapon. If you're not familiar with this, the St. Louis police bought these stink weapons. They basically spray this disgusting, putrid, gooey, nasty stuff on the people that are protesting, or in Palestinian children, whoever is slowing down business as usual, slowing down the destruction of olive orchards in Palestine. So the Israelis developed this weapon because they get criticized all the time for killing Palestinian children, and the UN comes after them and says, hey, these are war crimes, this is illegal, unconscionable. At the end of the day, they're trying to get more money out of U.S. taxpayers, so they have to pad this down a little bit. So I mean, I can't think of anything that would be worse than being shot with a directed energy weapon and being sprayed with putrid, wretched goo. But that is the solution the police have for the people in Ferguson that want to protest. Also, an interesting caveat is Oath Keepers and their role in these protests. Of course, during the first Ferguson riots, protests, call it what you will, thuggery, we saw stores being looted. We saw people looking to private contractors like Blackwater and others to protect their property. If you have the money to hire private mercenaries, it's probably a good deal. Oath Keepers there protecting people. They actually organized a 50-man armed black man and women march in, oh, come on, Spreaker. God, it's always something. Network deal. But anyway, they organized this march to, armed march to, show the world that people do have the right to be armed and they can stand up to the state in a very, very public way. And I don't know how effective or well-timed that is. You know, I try not to criticize other people's forms of protest and free speech and, using their God-given rights to life, liberty, and the protection of that with a firearm or whatever means are effective and equitable, just. But I don't know if it's a great idea. They've gotten a lot of flack in the mainstream media, although, I mean, some, sources, some newscasts demonizing the Oath Keepers for their role, and maybe rightfully so in some aspects, because, nothing can agitate a situation like outsiders, people that have really no skin in the game, other than trying to, for those that defend Oath Keepers, you would say, well, they have the right to do this, and they're providing protection for not only those people that are property owners, but keeping a watchful eye and probably a lot of the focus away from the violence that the police would be conducting against protesters, which is almost the exact same. But we see the same problems, inconsistencies with this latest round of rioting, where people are coagitating the police. You do have people that are armed. You do have people that have come from around the country, maybe even the world, to witness and to be part of these protests. So the escalation has definitely taken shape. So some of the news people in the mainstream media, quote unquote, have kind of demonized Oath Keepers for being agitators. I think that, well, I just always have a kind of a problem where you put yourself out there on some list, saying, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want. Turn the stream off. What I want, to see come of the situation. People wanting to take something away from this. There we go. That means, something that changes the status quo, that gets people to respect that Black Lives Matter. And I think they've done a pretty horrible job. That's one of the problems with having decentralized groups that are responding to government tyranny. Not everybody has the best approach. Anyway, we'll talk more about it. You can definitely chime in with your thoughts. 1-800-313-9443. More on the way. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Yeah, so anyway, if you have thoughts about the political scene in 2016 or any of the other melees that are happening around the world, feel free. 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio. To the phones we go. We go to Nevada to talk to Dave. Dave, Welcome. You're live on Blacklisted Radio.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to comment a little bit on Donald.
Sure.
I don't trust Donald, and I don't trust anything that he says, because it's like deja vu he's almost like a white version of Obama to me, in that he's telling people, I think he's just telling a certain contingent of Americans, predominantly white Americans, what they want to hear. And then once they get into office, they do a complete 180 turnaround.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. The only thing I would say about Donald Trump, not to be a defender or anything, but is that that happens with every politician because of the people that fund them. So if he did that, it wouldn't be any different than any of the other politicians. I only think that maybe because he has financial, immunity from having to, really grease the backs of everyone, that he might be immune from some of that. But, the only way we would know is to actually see him in the White House. And I'm kind of with you. Right. I'm on the fence. I don't know if any of these things would be, doable, if he would actually, go through with them. But, what he said, and we could go back to Bush and Obama. They both had great platforms, said lots of great things about what they were going to do, and did that exact thing. Flipped, flopped, and rolled over on every promise they made.
Yeah, and look at all the conservatives that got sucker punched by George Bush.
Oh yeah.
And another thing is, Donald Trump is not really. In my book, he's not really anti, shall I say, foreigner, as people like to tout him to be. He hires a lot of temporary foreign workers on his job because he wants the cheapest labor possible, and he does it on that temporary visa program that they have, that they use for a lot of different companies now. So in terms of immigration, he's just talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's not giving Americans jobs. He's hiring from abroad. They might be legal, but they're not American.
Sure.
So we're talking about, and the thing is, people give him a lot of credit for being a successful businessman and making a lot of money, and I understand that. But I've been around really rich people before. I've been around people that made more money than Donald Trump, more successful than he, and they're all pretty much the same. They don't care about people. They're just about the type of people that we're talking about at that echelon of or strata society. All they do is make deals. That's all they do.
Right.
And if people think that these kind of people are concerned about the American populace in general, they're sorely mistaken. They don't know how it works.
Well, and he kind of addressed this a little bit in the interview I heard with him today, and he said, we need to reinvest in America. If you're a businessman and you want to look at something that has a lot of potential, that has everything you need to be successful, we have that right here. And I think that he would make a lot of money for himself and his buddies, but going through the reinvestment in America would not necessarily be a bad thing. We're completely broke, not just financially, but morally. And to people like himself, there's a lot of production to create those jobs. You create businesses. You make America rich again. So, if you're an investor, there's a lot more to be made here than maybe even in places like China, because they have slave labor and they make cheap parts, but at some point those energy costs and the transportation of these products and the fact that you can't really trust the Chinese to make anything that they won't reverse engineer could mean that, something like that, a real economic overhaul would be pretty good for America. Now, I don't know if he'd actually do it. Dave, great points. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. More on the other side, folks. It's Blacklisted Radio.
On Route 66 from the billboard to Chicago, you'll find tiny pieces of my heart scattered devil with joy. Shattered by the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway.
And welcome back. This song kind of embodies what David was saying, and that is, it's about a guy that fell in love with a girl that doesn't exist, that isn't real. She was a picture on the billboard, completely crushed. And that's how many people feel after the presidential election. I mean, think about all the people that were so, pro-Obama. I remember some of them. You may know some hosts, even on this network or other alternative media networks, that were on the Obama train. Let's get on the train. I'm not going to name names, but there were some of them that were really beating the drum for it. I hear a lot of people talking about Bernie Sanders, and I'm not a Trumpite, and this isn't designed to be a Trump love fest, but he's the only thing that's different. He's the only X factor in the equation, as far as I can tell. Everybody else, status quo. Rand Paul kissing the ring of Israel. Everybody goes over there and puts on the yarmulke and wails at the wall, and everybody, gives lip service to, Saudi Arabia and, our Canadian counterparts, and it's all about selling missiles and bombs and freedom, apparently. So, that's the only thing that makes him kind of different. He's kind of the Ross Perot of 2016, and he might end up being that, where he splits votes with other Republicans if he breaks off as an independent, which means we'd probably be stuck with another Democrat. Which, take your pick. Find out what you think about those guys. And, I don't know. I some of the people there texting in would say that there's not much difference between George W. Bush and a Democrat. He was a big socialist, big government guy, going right back to David's comment. So anyway, if you have thoughts, 800-313-9443. One of the things that we do have to do is figure out the finances for this country. If you want to look at the long-term prosperity and overall benefit to being an American, we have to take care of the poor and the starving people here in this country. 46 million Americans are going to food banks now. Long lines, dwindling food supplies. People have to camp out all night long. And, sometimes you get this picture painted where we have this welfare nanny state, and everybody's just sucking down Mai Tais and using their government-given credit cards to order filet mignon because they have 7 kids. And I'm sure there's some of that goes on. There's definitely exploitation of just about every government service and, gimme that the government gives you. But, you just think about this. 46 million Americans are going to food banks. That's almost 1/5 of people are on the dole, completely dependent on the government, and the only way that they subsist is on some kind of subsidy. Many of these people are not paying for health care. That's why all the people that just have barely enough to not qualify. And that's where I'm at. I wouldn't even call myself middle income or a medium earner, but just enough to not be able to qualify to get all of these government perks, CHIP and Medicaid, you name it. The reason that people can work for next to nothing and make a career out of becoming a sandwich artist, not to disparage any of you listening, but the only reason that most of those people can actually survive and have any kind of livelihood is because of government gimmies. And people, even on the gimmies, 46 million of them are still having to go to food banks. So paints two different pictures. You hear Republicans and Democrats and the media paint the scenario of what we have going on in this country very differently. Congress has just voted to change the way we look at the economy, and it's just another magic trick. The money changers have done it again, and all of the polling, economic data that was collated, basically they're trying to get rid of all of it because it makes people feel bad. We don't want to know that we're going broke. We don't want to know that we have a bankrupt system. We don't want to talk about the reforming of our out-of-control war state. I mean, none of these things are going to be addressed. That's one of the things that's so disappointing, or maybe just par for the course when you watch political punditry. Basically, everybody's just talking about what Donald Trump did. This guy farts or says something on an interview, and this is so disrespectful to anybody else that's even running. They only ask them what they think about Trump. What do you think about Trump? What do you think about Trump? Because they're trying so hard to politically assassinate Trump. So even Fox News doing its best to give it to the Trumpster. And so the merry-go-round goes on and on and on. The reality on the ground is that we have to create jobs. Government doesn't do that. Government creates walls for certain people, and the ones that have paid their lobbyists very well, that have greased the pockets of Wall Street and the political elite, they have walls torn down for them. You talk about illegal immigration. It's a big problem in this country. There were more ID cards given out to illegal aliens last year in California than Americans. I mean, even the legal, visa ones. But when you really look at the people that are hollowing out the economy, it's through the tax system, giving foreigners 5 to 10 year amnesty on paying taxes. I mean, come on, you want to start a business? Give me 10 years of amnesty on having to pay any taxes. That would be a great way to put money back in Americans' hands. So the system is designed for those that manipulate it, people like the self-admitted manipulator, Donald Trump. But there is a huge problem in the country where you don't have a system that has any kind of equality. You talk about social justice and social equality. You're not going to have that unless you have independence and people that are able to speak out against the system because they are not completely dependent on it. So, food for thought. Food not for 46 million Americans, a very easy thing to get, apparently. All right, with that, we go to the phones. Rob in Minnesota is on Blacklisted Radio. Welcome.
Hey, Doug. Yeah, on the Trumpster, I just can't help but kind of chuckling when you have Karl Rove saying, "We control reality," and who do you have running for president? A reality TV.
I'm telling you, he is the reality TV president. He can go over to Putin and tell him, "You're fired, Putin. You, Saudi Arabia, you're fired. All of you Mexicans, you're fired."
I think we should run Martin Sheen on the Democratic ticket. Just so we have two television stars up there.
Now, see, that would be compelling must-see TV. I mean, that's why they love him. I mean, the ratings for the Republican debate was higher than any other TV show, movie besides sporting events. Bigger than everything else other than the ultimate bread and circus.
Boy, that really gave Jon Stewart a kick in the tail out the door, huh?
Yeah.
His last show, and he got a third of the viewers or something like that.
There was one thing I was watching. It wasn't Jon Stewart.
I didn't watch either one. I can't help. With Trump, it's the art of the deal, right? And so to me, he just sees. Wait a second, we got two candidates that are both willing to spend $2.5 billion for a job that pays $600,000 a year or thereabouts. I don't know the exact figure for presidential salary, but he's got to say, I want a piece of that action. And so he's positioning himself. If Jeb makes him the best deal, he'll just say, well, I don't want to break up the party, and he'll, at the final moments, he'll step out of the way and say, I give Jeb my complete support. If Hillary makes him the best deal, real estate, whatever, he'll just say, okay, I've had enough of the Republicans. I'm running independent. I want to be third party, and that'll split the party, and so Hillary will get in. So he is, it started the deal, and he's the swing player, so that's my take on it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, he could be a kingmaker in this whole deal, this whole equation. I mean, he's in a position to do that because he can break the party, and he can really, I mean, he said that he's given money to Hillary and that he paid her to come to his wedding. So I just kind of balk at, some of the things he says because he sounds like a total mobster. I don't know if you heard him talk about Carl Icahn. He's like, Carl, I talked to Carl. He said, I'll put your mind at ease, and I'm in. He's like, Carl, how many deals do you got going on? What, you got 20 deals? Come on, man. Make America number one. Let's make America happen again. So it's this kind of gangster mobster talk that I think is just so candid. That's how business is done.
I wish that on the with the Megyn debate, he would have said, look, Megyn, I said those things on my reality talk show. We go for ratings. We have specialists we talk to, and how we get our ratings. Now, if you don't understand ratings, I ask you, why don't you go 1 month without showing any cleavage and see what happens to your ratings?
Yeah, exactly. Well, touche. Yeah, she's on vacation right now. She's not coming back. She's not happy. She got trumped. Okay. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I find it entertaining. I don't know what ultimately will become of this. I think a lot of I've seen some analysis that Donald Trump is. He is, secretly working with Hillary. That he's the Republican Trojan horse to disseminate or destroy rather the Republican Party, to decimate it. That's the word I was looking for. The Republican Party.
I think beyond without a doubt, he's just there to keep the eye off of what's really going on in the world. That he's just there as the distraction while the magician pulls off his magic trick. Trump is there, to get the audience to look over at him and what's going on. Well, geez, there's so many things going on. It's hard to believe.
Well, yeah, and he's his number one favorite thing to talk about. He is a narcissist. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, it's always me, 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 me. I mean, turn on the TV, listen to Trump for 2 minutes, and if he's not talking about him and what he is and why he's awesome and breaking people down into not really left or right, but really winners and losers.
Well, if he ever got in office, you can bet he would be taking up fiddle lessons, for primetime television. He'd be there playing violin for while the world burns. So
yeah, Carl Icahn might be his Nero. Yeah,
might be it. Hey, do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
What happened to Chuck? Charlie, I called into his show back in May. I had a confrontation with the Federal Reserve presentation, not a confrontation, a conversation.
Okay.
And I talked with Charlie, and that was his second to the last show.
Charlie, he was struggling with his asthma. He was having near-death experiences for the year and a half that we did the Doomcast. We did about 80 episodes, and
well, you covered it really well because those shows, did always come across really pretty well. I know he talked about it, but
yeah, and so I think when you get past something like that and you're able to, you're in a life and death scenario all the time, taking time off to spend with friends and family and really, making his son into a man and spending much more time with him and all the things that go along with kids in high school. I think that he just decided to kind of take a step back from it. And
Tell him we all love him. We're praying for him. We miss him, and hope he gets better. And we want to see him back in the game. So you guys had a nice show going there. So
well, thank you. I appreciate it, Rob. Yeah, I will definitely tell him that. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it, and great points on Trump. I couldn't agree more with that analysis. And what?
All right, thanks, Doug.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Yeah, and what comes of Trump if he actually becomes president? That will be interesting. But reality TV. I think that Obama was really the first, and I've said that often. That it was Hollywood. Sarah Jessica Parker, Ben Affleck, Julia. Oh, what's her face? The UN ambassador. Brad Pitt's wife, whatever her name is, I forget. The one with the big lips. They made Obama. It's time for change. Remember that? It's time for change. It works so well that even other socialists like Barroso in Italy and just a bunch of people all across Europe started pushing their presidential campaigns with different versions of time for change. And all I've seen is a lot of the same. But it was the media that really made Obama. And, when you look at how they are attacking and trying to discredit Trump on every level, I heard this one lady saying, well, what do you, all these mistakes you've made, what do you think about this? All the things like the Megyn Kelly. And he's like, what mistakes? I've made no mistakes. My ratings keep going up. And that's kind of refreshing because you think about that. They're telling you, well, what you're doing is wrong and you're messing up. But the results are his numbers have gone up. But they don't like that. They view that, these political faux pas, not being politically correct, as political suicide. And that just shows you how disconnected the media really is from the people that it's supposedly serving. So there you go. Not endorsing him, not going to be giving Donald Trump my money anytime soon. He's got plenty of his own. And, that's kind of the point when it comes to him. Wanted to cover a few other stories. Let's see, no calls. All right. Pentagon-trained rebel group in Syria pledges allegiance to ISIS, aligned now with al-Nusra. You haven't been paying attention to the ISIS crisis, the daily beheadings and weird, funny things that the group known as ISIS, ISIL, IS, are up to. You're really missing out. I mean, just weird things that either have to be complete media fabrications, or just the craziest, kookiest people in the land. I'm still hard-pressed to believe that there is this allure for people other than, the monthly, almost borderline retarded person that is recruited by an FBI agent who's paying for their apartment and buying their drugs that want to join this group. So anyway, we're well on our way to the authorization. I think that just came down from the decider, Obama, that we will be supporting our terrorist Al-Qaeda troops in Syria, and that we will be now the Air Force for Al-Qaeda. Now, it becomes this really, it's an orgy of evil, is what I think the best analogy is. It's an orgy of evil. We've gotten to the point where we will just give money, bombs, weapons of mass destruction to almost any knucklehead in the Middle East as long as they are willing to kill Bashar al-Assad. I have to say that I am completely impressed that this man is still in power. That he hasn't been sodomized like Mr. Muammar Gaddafi. His son is facing life now. I think he was charged and is going to spend the rest of his days behind bars. It's, talk about a long drop, a far fall from the life that you used to lead, hanging out with Baron Rothschild's son, Nat, and hanging out with Natalie Portman and other media stars, now being a war criminal and probably tortured and raped on a daily basis in a Libyan jail. Yeah. See, thought you had a bad day. Thought you were living a dream in a dream world. It's got to be really a culture shock for people like that. But Bashar al-Assad's in this same place. I mean, he was Angelina Jolie. Duh. Thanks, text line. Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Al Gore. I mean, Bashar al-Assad and his very attractive wife used to dine with these people. They used to be friends with the Kerrys. They were invited to all of these places when they were still torturing for the U.S. government. And to be on the A list, I mean, it's worse than going to the B list and having to do comedy bits with Anderson Cooper. It's really low, and apparently he is still alive and well, and the crisis of ISIS continues. All right, welcome back. It's the final segment of Blacklisted Radio. Thank you for being part of the show tonight. You can text me with your thoughts if you listen to the podcast, or go to the website, blacklistedradio.com, after the show. You can get exclusive content that you can only find there, and so much more. So you can text me, 512-222-3067. Privately run prisons. It's kind of a thing for me. I really, really hate the idea that we have turned incarceration, literal enslavement, into a profitable business. I think that it should be something that we have to deal with. We have to put people in prison, but the second it becomes profitable, there's always problems with that. It's always problematic. And so I know that there's a lot of conservative types that think, well, you're in prison, you should pay for it. Why should the taxpayer have to pay for the incarceration of these people? They put themselves there. Well, laws are designed to protect people, protect liberty, life, and all of that good stuff, right? At least that's the idea. We have laws to protect people from each other and from corporations. When you run afoul of those laws, you may or may not be incarcerated. And it's pretty selective. Here in the United States and probably most places around the world, all of that hinges on how much money you have and how fancy and how well ordained your financial priest may be, or your legal team may be. That's how you buy freedom pretty much here in the U.S. if you run afoul of the law. So, private prisons. A couple stories of the enslavement of people, forced labor, and the profiteering off of incarceration. As soon as there's profits that come from private institutions that have taken over public services or public, what would you call them, requirements, necessities, utilities. It's kind of like a water district, but it's a prison district. But outside of the purview of the state or government, when you have this, you have big-time problems. Privately run Nashville jail forced inmates to work without pay, building beanbag cornhole games, plaques shaped like footballs, birdhouses, and dog beds. Just one fine example. Former inmates at a privately run Nashville jail say they work without pay building beanbag games, and they do this for them to be sold by personnel businesses at flea markets. Inmates, quote, can legally be required to work without pay in some circumstances, but jail employees are not supposed to profit from their labor. Now, we had a little thing like this happen in Bastrop County, where I used to reside, where they have the piñatas that look like Donald Trump, probably one of many places. But anyway, they were making barbecue pits, and the sheriff had these guys, cutting tube, welding these things, and he was selling them for a handsome profit. I mean, a nice barbecue pit in Texas, yeah, it can go for a lot of money. A really nice one with a smoker and, multiple doors, one of these things that's so big you have to put it on a trailer because you can't, put it in your car. talking about thousands of dollars. So anyway, profiteering off America and enslavement, it's something that it's almost like apple pie. All right. Shouldn't be that way, though. Next week, we will do this again. Thank you so much for being part of it. Until then, take care.